Well, let's start off from the court, because Attorney General and Minister for Justice Godfred Yeboah-Dame has served notice he will appeal against the 2-1 majority Court of Appeal's decision that quashed the controversial trial of the minority leader, Dr. Ato Forson, and businessman Richard Jakpa for allegedly causing financial loss to the state. Ato Forson and Richard Jakpa, who is a representative for Big C, were accused of causing a financial loss of 2.4 million euros to the state in a deal to purchase 200 ambulances for the country between 2014 and 2016. The court said the two have no case to answer and therefore stepped aside an earlier decision of the trial high court for the case to proceed, for which Richard Jakpa, the third accused, has had to call a number of witnesses. Now, in a statement issued by the Attorney General shortly after the ruling, Godfred Dame indicated that his office, quote, considers the decision of the Court of Appeals to be perverse in the quest for public accountability and the rule of law. The decision clearly is heavily against the weight of the cogent evidence led by the prosecution in substantiation of all the charges against the accused persons at the trial, unquote. Now, this afternoon, we'll break it all down here for you on the pulse, plus bring you some more reactions to this developing story. First, how did the judges vote on this particular case? Let's share with you how the judges voted in this particular case. Now, Justice Alex Pokwa-Champon, who presided, dissented from he dissented from the decision. Justice Kweku Tewia Akabuafo granted the permission of no case filed by Dr. Ato Forson, and then also Justice Philip Bright Mensah also granted that application of no case brought to the court by Dr. Ato Forson. Now, we have reactions from the Attorney General and other parties in this case for you. But right now, let's bring in Legal Affairs Correspondent Latif Idrisu, who has just returned from the court and joins me in studio with a lot more. Latif, so first, let's set the setting in court. How was it like in court this morning?
So two courts, the Court of Appeal and then the High Court.
Great.
This information about the ruling of the Court of Appeal came in at a very odd time, at the blind side of most of the judicial press corps members. And so you wouldn't get what exactly transpired within that particular court. We got to know about it after the ruling was made by the Court of Appeal. Because you just touched on how the judges ruled, just to brief our audience about what they said in those rulings that came out.
So in taking the stance they took, what they really said, exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
So interestingly, like you pointed out, Justice Alex Pokwa-Champon, who presided, actually dissented. And then the other two members on the
granted the application.
Okay. So let's start with A1. A1 here refers to Dr. Ato Forson. And Justice Kweku Tewia Akabuafo, this is what he said when Dr. Ato Forson brought up this no-case application. Willfully causing loss to the state and intentionally misapplying public property. A3 also, his accusation was that he was charged with willfully causing financial loss. And this is what Justice Kweku Tewia Akabuafo said. He said, accused not to be forced to assist in his prosecution. The prosecution failed to establish sufficient evidence. Trial judge erred in calling on A1, that is Dr. Ato Forson, to open his defense, and that no positively proven facts were made by the prosecution. There is no link between the evidence heard and what happened for the third accused person to be called to open defense. Third accused person here referring to the businessman Richard Jakpa. The appeal filed by both should succeed and the order of High Court set aside. The appellate are and should be hereby be acquitted and discharged. That is the ruling by Justice Aka Boafo. Then we come to Justice Bright Mensah. He said, apart from the letter A1 wrote, he did not do much to be asked to open his defense. Ministry of Health, who has to do pre-inspection and not A1, Dr. Ato Forson.
Okay.
So here, we are going back to Richard Animana. If you recall, he was among the three standing trial. He was left off the hook because of his ill health. He has to travel to India.
And the state filed a null prosequi
on his behalf. Exactly. Now, the Court of Appeal is saying that if for anything at all, it should be the Ministry of Health that should be held accountable with regards to this particular ambulance procurement. Reasons not explained, the Health Ministry refused to do that and should be held accountable. As at today, the ambulances are still at the port, and that cannot be blamed on A1, Dr. Ato Forson. No prima facie has been made for accused to open their defense. This is in stark contrast to the High Court's decision.
Okay.
And remember, the High Court judge is also a Court of Appeal judge.
Okay.
She's only sitting at the High Court with additional responsibility, but she's a Court of Appeal judge. Now, the Court of Appeal is saying in this ruling that no prima facie has been made for accused to open their defense. But the High Court ruled contrary, that prima facie case had been made. Reason why the case went on and on and on. But for that, the case would have been ended since 2021. On A3, so he rounded up
this
by
is still Justice Bright Mensah.
Bright Mensah. He rounded up by saying the evidence by prosecution is not reliable for a court to deal with them. Then we move on A3, Justice Bright Mensah on A3. He says, no evidence for him to be called upon to answer. Money paid was because he took instructions against his principal. His principal here, Kudu, we are talking about Big C, the Dubai-based business, which Richard Jakpa was acting as an intermediary between them and then the Ministry of Health. If there is any financial loss, that was based on the Health Ministry's recklessness and be blamed on Ministry of Health. If they worked in the interest of the state, the whole ambulance would have been dealt with. Kudu, this is like the crux of the ruling. Now everything is being put on the Ministry of Health. That if they did their work well, if they conducted the pre-inspection and then found out that the ambulances were not fit for purpose, then we wouldn't have been here today.
So meaning that the three accused persons were standing trial. If there should be anybody at all to be blamed, it would have been A2.
A2.
Not A1 or A3.
A3.
Okay.
And A2 was let go.
Go. And then these
these two were the ones that were standing trial.
Very interesting.
Well, so both appellants have made a case for them to be acquitted and discharged. The appeal succeed and accused are hereby acquitted and discharged. Now, this is the dissenting view by Justice Alice Pokwe-Champon. He says the trial judge did not err by holding accused to answer.
Okay, all right then. So it means that this case is off the table.
For now, momentarily.
Yes.
Because
the AG says he will file an appeal, but for now, it is off the table.
It's off.
But you were in the High Court waiting for the case itself to progress today.
Yeah.
How was it like? Because I'm sure the judge would have prepared to come and attend to the case.
Exactly. So I think some of the lawyers were actually in court. Lawyers for A3, some of them were in court, but the lead lawyer wasn't there. Tidal Soy was not there. Lawyers for Ato Forson, none of them showed up. The prosecution, none of them showed up.
Okay.
But some of the journalists were in court, and you have audience coming in to also monitor. Some of them were also seated. Then we saw one of the clerks call the lawyer for A3, Ashia, who was in court, and then she whispered something to him. Now, when he came back, we heard him telling Richard Jakpa, who was in court, Dr. Casey Ato Forson was not in court, but Rachel Jakpa was in court, telling Rachel Jakpa that the judge said she wasn't going to sit on the case.
Okay.
Then they all stood up and then left.
Oh, so that's what they told them.
Yes.
They didn't tell them that the appeals court says ABC. Or...
We didn't hear that conversation.
Okay. All right.
We only heard that the judge said she was not sitting on the case today. And so they stood up and left, and we all followed suit, and then we caught up with them outside, and then we got a few words from the A3, Richard Jakpa, who has been very, full of life, if you like, after this decision by the Court of Appeal. And interestingly, he rushed to the High Court, and you know what? He was going there to pick his passport. Okay. Yes, he was going to pick his passport.
Richard Jakpa?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, as part of the bail condition, he was made to submit his passport.
So he was going for it?
He was going for it.
Okay.
And I asked him if he was going to leave the country. Yeah, one of the questions I asked him in the interview, I'm sure he's going to introduce that in the interview.
But you've been speaking to Richard Jakpa?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I will bring you that interaction that my colleague Latif Idrisu has been having with Richard Jakpa just after that development in court. Okay, so we'll bring that to our viewers shortly. But just after you had spoken to him, we got the Attorney General himself speaking to MFR Apao on the midday news on Joy FM about this particular development. He poured out what his views are about this judgment that the Court of Appeals had pronounced on this particular case. Let's listen to him.
I'm not the only one who was surprised by this ruling. I'm sure the entire nation is surprised because indeed the public has been following the trial and the evidence led by the prosecution. It is not in doubt at all whatsoever that there has been financial loss in this matter established. It's a case where vehicles reporting to be ambulances were imported into the country in December 2014. Indeed, they were bereft of any equipment or parts that would render them to be used as ambulances. Apart from that, there were serious material defects with every part of the vehicle. Indeed, the specification of the vehicle was wrong. The kind of vehicles that were supposed to supply in the contract were not what was supplied. That is not in doubt. And it is a matter on record. There's also a report that was obtained by the Minister of Health in 2015 when the NDC was in power, which stated categorically that the vehicles could never be converted into ambulances. So clearly, the vehicles are of no use to the nation. So financial loss has been established. Now, the only issue then left is the link between the accused persons and the offense. And it's again a matter of record that the former Minister for Health, who was in office at the time that the transaction was brought into being by the act of Dr. Ato Forson, had actually written to the company which supplied the ambulances, not to supply the ambulances, not supply the vehicles at all. So Madame Seriety had written a letter cautioning against the transaction, and by that time, the transaction had even lapsed. The vehicles were supposed to supply it within 11 months. By that time, the 11 months had long elapsed. The vehicles were supposed to supply it by December or November 2013. Well, so the contract was signed in December 2012. Yeah. Now, in August 2014, Dr. Ato Forson, without any request whatsoever from Minister of Health, then wrote for the Bank of Ghana to establish this of credit. But and it was after that the vehicles were imported.
For the sake of time, yes.
Now, so if evidence has been laid, all the court is supposed to look at that stage is whether the necessary ingredients of the offense have been established. And indeed, the necessary ingredients of the offense have been established. The trial court had held so way back over a year ago. The trial has since proceeded, and we have gone ahead to lead even further evidence to show connection between the accused persons and the offense.
But all these facts, Mr. Attorney General, all these facts were before the Court of Appeal, yet they took a decision that there's no case against these two persons, and you still insist that it was a wrong decision by the Court of Appeal. What would you do about it?
Precisely. I mean, so I'm a firm believer in the rule of law. I'm an adherent to the rule of law, and clearly I will appeal against the decision. This is the first time that a decision adverse to the prosecution has been given by a court. Remember, when there was an order after we had led so much evidence against Dr. Opini the High Court actually ordered that we should commence de novo. What did I do? I filed an appeal to the Court of Appeal, and I was able to sustain the appeal. And so I think that is what we've done promptly in this matter. We'll file an appeal to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to give a definitive view on the matter. And I think that clearly this decision by the Court of Appeal is wrong, is unfair to the nation, and must not be allowed to stand. If indeed it stands, it will set a very dangerous precedent for the nation. It goes against the grain of all the authorities on causing financial loss in the country. And in my respectful view, there is no case in which financial loss has been more clearly established than this one. The financial loss established, and also as a result of the act of the accused person here, it's so clear. You find an accused person who even profited 700,000 euros out of the 2.3 million euros that was paid for the ambulances. I mean, I think that this is so offensive to the rule of law, and indeed, the decision must not be allowed to stand.
Well, it's surprising that you mentioned from the beginning that this decision actually came as a surprise to you and to Ghanaians. You're saying that you were not aware at all about this decision that was going to be taken today, at least by the Court of Appeal.
No, that's not the point I'm making. I'm saying that the effect of the decision, clearly, I mean, it's shocking. It's shocking because it goes against the grain of all the authorities on financial loss. It goes against the law as we know it in the country, and clearly is a case where financial loss has been established. It's not in doubt. It's a case where the acts of the accused persons were the ones which directly caused the financial loss. Without it, there's no record at all in this matter of the Minister of Health requesting for the letter of credit to be established by the Minister of Finance. Indeed, the Deputy Minister of Finance then, Dr. Ato Forson, on his own, wrote for the letters of credit to be established. And the LCs were not established for nothing. They were the means by which the vehicles were paid for. The letters of credit were the means by which the vehicles were paid for. And so if they were established contrary to the agreement, if they are established in favor of a company whose agreement did not even have parliamentary approval, every aspect of this matter is bad. The company itself, the agreement itself, it's an transfer business agreement. It never went to parliament. So to start with, and then the vehicles that were supplied, contrary to the specification under the contract, they are not the ones specified under the contract. The vehicles were bereft of any equipment at all. From 2014, when the vehicles arrived in the country, up to 2017, when the NDC left office, they could not even convert the vehicles into ambulances. And why was that so? Because of the report by the authorized dealers in Mercedes-Benz that the vehicles could never be converted into ambulances. And so I think that as the Attorney General, it is nothing personal. It is a case where I seek to uphold the rule of law. And indeed, we have to test the soundness of this decision. And I have no doubt at all that the decision was most unsound and bad.
So safe to say that at least you are heading to the Supreme Court as we speak?
Yes, definitely.
Well, looking at the case in itself, just before you go, though, technically, it means that this whole ambulance procurement trial is over.
As I said, there's always an opportunity of an appeal, and we're going to explore that.
But until then, we can safely say.
For now, it means that the trial is suspended for now. But if the Supreme Court makes a determination that indeed the decision of the Court of Appeal was wrong, it will lead to a continuation of the trial from where we left off.
But looking at the trial itself and some of the issues that came up, Mr. Dami, at least the issue about the plea bargaining, the amounts that Big C wanted to pay in all this, looking back in hindsight, you think we should have taken that money? At least we were trying them for causing financial loss of the state. We had the opportunity to take some money, but yet we did not. Looking back on that.
It is not as simple as that. Again, everything must be done within the confines of the law. If a party, which is not a party to the proceedings, offers to pay money and for the accused person to let off, what will be the position in which I find myself? That yes, I have agreed to the matter to be discontinued because somebody sitting somewhere has offered to pay some money. I mean, I think that even the public would have raised further questions against me, against my integrity and all that. And my integrity is what matters in the process.
Okay.
Indeed, it's a matter of record that the accused persons were interested in it. So why would the accused persons themselves openly and freely come forward and make a plea bargaining proposal and rather hide behind third parties?
But to the layperson, the ordinary person would say we could have still taken the money and still go on with the trial, but we chose not to.
Yes. No. So the trial can proceed. No. So the basis of the proposal by the accused persons was that I should listen to some third parties and truncate the trial. So indeed, the two could never have been compatible within the circumstances in which we find ourselves.
Well, but what would you say finally to persons who would say that Godfred Dame, as the Attorney General, is emotionally attached to this particular case?
And how is that so? How would I be emotionally attached to the matter? Never at all. Otherwise, there cannot be any prosecution for financial loss in the country. I think that all cases are prosecuted at the instance of the Attorney General. The Attorney General is responsible for every prosecution in the country. And so there cannot be a question of the Attorney General being emotionally involved or connected to any matter at all. It's a case where I think that the public accountability must reign, and the quest of public accountability in the country must prevail. I think in a situation where some people, with all respect, find or consider themselves to be above the law, above the rule of law, must not happen. The rule of law implies that everyone is underneath the law. We are all below the law, and we're all supposed to observe the law. No particular person or group of persons can be above the law. A trial is a trial. The ingredients of an offense for stealing is the same, whether committed by a person highly placed in society or by the lowest ranked member in society. It's the same. I mean, financial laws. And indeed, the essence of these financial laws cases is to check public accountability in office, is to ensure that public accountability is upheld. And so there must be a full opportunity for the state to conduct its case when it comes to financial law cases, because it has far-reaching implications for the public purse. Apart from the public purse, has far-reaching implications for the way we conduct ourselves in public life. It has an effect on checking impunity in public life. Now, I think if you look at facts of this case, where a deputy minister can, with all respect, authorize a transaction, there's no basis at all, there's no request for the beneficiary ministry whatsoever, and indeed the purpose of the transaction turns out to be of no effect because the vehicles that were supplied were not one specified in the contract, were not fit for purpose, were described in the words of Dr. Sebefia, who was a minister for health. Ordinary vans, which could never be used. And over 2 years while the NDC was in office, they could never convert it into ambulances. And there's also a technical report on it showing that they could never be converted into ambulances. I think that if the nation indeed would desire for its money to be, with all respect, thrown away in this manner, so be it. But I think there was accountability in public life.
Well, so that was the Attorney General speaking to us just after this particular, judgment was given by the appeals court. But we've also been speaking to Richard Jakpa, who is the third accused in this case, and here's how he reacts to the decision.
This ruling is a victory for all democracy-loving Ghanaians and those who hold fidelity to the rule of law, to the law. So it's a victory for all Ghanaians. It's not a victory for me alone. And for all those who were praying and they saw that we needed integrity in this country and they wanted that protected. And so it's a victory for everyone.
When I spoke with you during one of your interviews here at the court complex, you mentioned that the judge was treating you like a convict who is only going through the motion, and then at the end of the day, you're going to be thrown into jail. Do you regret that statement now that the case has been, taken off by the Court of Appeal?
Not at all. I stand by it because it's a fact. It was very obvious and clear. And the justice that I got with all Ghanaians supporting it, I got it from the Court of Appeal and not from the High Court. The High Court, if you realize, we sat yesterday and we're to sit today, Tuesday, and we're to sit Wednesday. So you could see that she's in a hurry to finish this case before the election. So I didn't get my justice through the High Court or through Justice Efia Sewa Sarbochi. No, it's from the Appeal Court, where there are men of integrity who look at the evidence as it is. And then they granted me my freedom. So I got justice from the Court of Appeal.
So you were in a hurry to pick your passport here at the High Court. Are you planning to leave the country following all the hearing and all that has gone on? Is that the intention that you have right now?
Oh, not at all, not at all, not at all. I'm going nowhere. If I'm traveling, it's purely to go and get my international business partners and try to see how I can get things back on track.
How has that affected your business in any way?
Oh, down to the ground. down to the ground, completely down to the ground. So I have a lot of work to do now.
You know, the AG has the prosecution, they could also go to the Supreme Court and also go for review if it goes against them. Is this something you are looking forward to? Are you prepared for that?
More than prepared. I'm always ready. If the Attorney General wants to go to the court or go to the Supreme Court to appeal against the ruling, I'll meet him there. Even if he doesn't win there, he wants to go for review, I'll meet him there. Wherever he wants to go, I'll meet him there. So I don't have an issue at all. I'm really ready for this government. I'm ready for them. All that I can say is that my enemies and detractors have been put to shame. I've been vindicated, and all those allegations that they level against me, trying to dent my integrity because of the conduct of the crooked Attorney General Godfrey Dame, it hasn't worked. I've been vindicated by the ruling of the appeal court. I've always said that I'm an innocent man and I'm being persecuted for political reasons. And the Court of Appeal has vindicated me on that stand that I've always been saying.
What would you say did the magic for you in all this trial? What moment would you say stood out for you that did the magic for you? And Dr. Kisula.
It's all about my integrity. It's the integrity that gave me the justice. You see, I couldn't turn my back or betray Ato Forson or the NDC party because I knew what this government was after. And I couldn't turn my back on my party, and then I couldn't also betray Ato Forson. I couldn't do that because he's an innocent man. And it didn't resonate with my conscience and the way I do my things. And that is why I did what I did, and I stand by it.
If you live here, what would you say to your lawyer, or what would you say to your wife?
Well, since you've asked this question, I want to use this opportunity to thank all the lawyers that in diverse ways contributed to this victory. In fact, starting with lawyer Rindo Sam, and then lawyer Ampakosa, and then lawyer Thomas Obin, who was just around here, and then also my current lawyer, lawyer Tadio Sori, and then lawyer Bafo Esha, and all the team that contributed in diverse ways. Those that were working behind the scene, getting cases for my lawyers, reading cases, and then working behind the scene. You may not see their faces, but they were really doing their work behind the scene to put together everything that my lawyers presented. I'm thanking all of them. It was a teamwork. So all the past lawyers, they also contributed their ways throughout the process. So that's why I'm thanking all of them.
All right, thank you.
Has this trial change your perception about the country and how it's governed?
Oh yes, of course.
How is that?
Well, what I see is that we have a problem at our Attorney General, Minister of Justice, and Attorney General's office. And what I will entreat subsequent presidents is to really check the character of who they appoint as Attorney General of the country. Because if you want to protect our democracy and the rule of law, you must be very circumspect in who you appoint as your Attorney General, because he's number one enforcer of the law. And all ethics of the legal system, he's the leader of that. So if you appoint a crooked person, a rogue who doesn't play by the rules, a gangster, and he comes and take that position, then you can be rest assured that innocent people, men of integrity, will all be sent to jail. You either join them to pillage and run the country down, capture the whole country, or they send you to jail. And most Ghanaians, a lot of people who are in this other institutions, they have no choice than to join them. So you can see that almost all our institutions have been captured. They have been cowed into silence. We only have a few men of integrity who are still in state institutions, who are still trying to hold the rule of law and to protect this nascent democracy of ours. But if it were left to these people in government, there will be nothing left for Ghanaians. So it's very, very important that when it is time for us to go and vote on December 7th. Ghanaians who want to protect this democracy and want to give the third independence to Ghana. And I always say we need to fight for a third independence because the first independence was secured by Kwame Nkrumah. The second independence was secured by the late Flight Lieutenant General John Rawlings. And we are now going for our third independence. And that must be done by John Dramani Mahama. And we need Ghanaians to support him in that. Because we need to give this country an independence. The country has been run down. We have very few men of integrity still in the judiciary. So we need to rescue this country. This country, we need an independence for this country, the third independence.
We communicated this to Big C already?
Oh, I've done that. In fact, I'm very happy and they are jubilating. Yeah.
So your business is coming up to stream now?
Oh, well, to come, I would now need to travel out and go and put up, because what they did, it cost me a lot of international damage. So a lot of my international partners were a little bit lackadaisical in, they were pulling out on so many things. So I need to now fly out, go and reassure them, get things back on track. I just need to put my life back in order. And I need time to do that.
So that's third accused in the ambulance trial, Richard Jakpa, who is a businessman. He says he's going to restart his business connections to get his foreign partners back, But Latif, you've done some incredible job there. This is over. And until the AG gets back, we don't know. So we've lost the 2.4 million that Big C said he wanted to pay. Yeah,
technically the 2.37 million euros. That's there was a plea bargaining talk along the line. Yeah. But the Attorney General decided that no, they wanted to actually go to the court and prosecute them for causing financial loss. So the AG declined that offer of paying back the 2.37 million euros. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm unable to tell whether or not with this particular Court of Appeal ruling, the state has now actually lost the 2.37 million euros.
Or there's still an opportunity.
There's a window of opportunity for the state to recoup that amount back.
Let's see what happens, but I'm grateful to you and kudos for that wonderful job that you've done on this case. Well,